This is Irwin Creek, and it is one of the 50 or so named tributaries to the Laguna de Santa Rosa. So, of course, the Laguna de Santa Rosa is this huge watershed. It's 250 square miles, so all the way over to the hills, you know, up to the Mayacamas and Sonoma Mountain. And of course, this little coastal range here at Sebastopol. So we're on the far western side of the watershed, kind of in the bottom of the hinge. And being a low spot, we could easily be well over our heads in water in a good winter storm. In fact, the Sanford Road Bridge goes under almost every year, and sometimes several times in a year for several days at a time. So there's a lot of water that moves through this system. And one of the things that we were concerned about was when we purchased the property, because it had been a dairy for 100 years, there was not a single tree in Irwin Creek. And yet, when we looked above the property fence line upstream, it was a gorgeous forest. So we thought, well, heck, our side of the fence should have that same beautiful multi-storied forest. And so we started with just excluding the cows. And we planted back in 94 and 96. I don't know if you can see the post over closer to the creek. That was the original setback fence line. You know, we were thinking small back in those days, but we knew that we needed something to protect the creek. We didn't want the cows stepping in, causing bank erosion. We didn't want the runoff from the farm to be able to make it into Irwin Creek. And so we planted the trees that you see there back in the 90s. And then we started thinking a little bigger. And the research is unclear at this time, you know, what constitutes the best setback in terms of providing ecosystem services, but 100 feet seemed like a pretty good round number. So we've got 100 feet, actually it's just a little bit more, but 100 feet setback on either side of the creek now. And we've done the revegetation you see with these young trees. They're somewhere, you know, between 1 and 3 years old right now. So they are coming along, and you know, they're going to fill in the canopy like the earlier planting did, and create this this not only migration dispersal opportunity, but keep in mind all this manure, it's going to be underwater at some point in the winter, running off the higher parts of the farm. Now it's going to go through a natural filtration, and it's going to have an opportunity for solids to settle out, for nutrients to be taken up and other pollutants to be neutralized before it travels, you know, downstream into the greater Laguna and Russian River system. The other thing is, at some point we'll get in there, and we'll get into the microclimate under the trees. And you'll see it's a lot different than standing out here in the sun. It's not even particularly hot today. So we've got this opportunity to cool the water. Now, old timer told me that there were steelhead in this creek when he was a boy. And I believe it, because the upper watershed has some really great gravelly beds that seem like they would be the appropriate size for laying eggs. Steelhead, you know, are very fussy about where they lay their eggs, as are the Chinook and coho salmon in this watershed, because if the sediment or rocks or substrate's too small, there's no air circulation, and if they're too big, then the eggs get washed away. So upstream, there's some pretty good potential breeding habitat, and that means that as the young steelhead, they have to survive their first summer in the creek. And this creek dries up in stretches, so there's only pockets of water left. And those pockets, if they dry up completely, that's no good. And if they're too warm, that's no good, because water holds less oxygen. So we can also improve our water quality just by shading the water, keeping it cooler. And that's going to mean a bigger diversity of species, some that have very strict requirements on temperature. Okay, so let's take a look at the creek. We'll walk down on the other side there, and we'll get down into the confluence of the Laguna. Are you?